Aloha, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Warrior Women in the World of Entrepreneurship podcast. Today's guest has many accolades, which I'm going to read just some of them to you because otherwise we'd be here the whole entire podcast. So today's guest is Miss Ivy Mix. She's really well known. She's a co-founder of Speed Rack with Lynette Marrero, who we've had on here. And that is a national cocktail competition, just basically with all females coming in, and all the proceeds go basically all the female bartenders and mixologists that they can get who are part of the competition, and all the proceeds that are going towards that go to breast cancer prevention. So that's one major thing. Co-owner of the Pan Latin American Bar in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, Leyenda. Yeah. I had to stop myself for a second to not have my Argentinian accent. Leyenda. You're also the author of Spirits of Latin America, which won numerous amount of awards in the AICP, won Tales of the Cocktail. Correct. I'm just trying to make sure I get all these titles right. Yeah. Like I said, there is a whole long list. You guys can also find this on her website. I'm just giving you a little bit of light into who Miss Ivy Mix is. And then you've traveled throughout Latin America with your studies, trying to research and find different cocktails and spirits that can add to your knowledge. And I know that you lived and worked in Guatemala for a while as well. Mm-hmm. And you also are basically continuing to inspire the nation to rethink a woman's role behind the bar. So without any further ado, Miss Ivy Mix, thanks so much for coming on here today.
Hiya.
Like I said, guys, she's won so many more things. She's got Bartender of the Year 2015, Mixologist of the Year 2016, and there's so many more. I could go on and on, but we're just going to get right into everything here today. So I appreciate you coming on today. And what I'd like to talk about is how you even started any of this. You know, what did you study in college? Did you plan on being a mixologist, a bartender? Did you want to co-own businesses and own your own businesses? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so no, the answer is I didn't think I was going to be doing any of these things. I went to college at Bennington College in Southern Vermont. It's like the liberalist of liberal East Coast colleges. And you had a fall term and a spring term like anybody else, but you also had a winter term called fieldwork term in which you were supposed to go do work in your field. I was born and raised in Vermont, never really got out of Vermont. Pretty sheltered. I had trained horses most of my life, and I chose Bennington so I could study art, but in this winter term also go ride horses and like continue my path towards horse lady. But after one semester in college, I was like, whoa, I want to get the hell out of here. Like, I want to go see the rest of the world. And told my mom, I'm like, I'll go anywhere. Like, I just want to learn a foreign language, and I don't want to be in the States. Like, help me. So through a friend of a friend of a friend, I ended up in Guatemala. And when I was in Guatemala for those 3 months or 2.5 months, this was in 2005, end of 2004, beginning 2005, like over New Year's there.
Sure.
You know, Facebook didn't exist. No one traveled with cell phones. I had to call my mom from an internet cafe to be like, hey, kid, you know?
Yeah.
And you couldn't, like, now we take for granted that you can just pick up your phone and find someone to meet and you can like vet them out, right? But back then it was like, well, how do you meet anyone? I thought I was going to like rural Guatemala.
Yeah.
Research. I am very bad at researching any travel trip. I just kind of go.
Yeah.
And I was in like a kind of like a thriving teeny tiny metropolis in Antigua, Guatemala. So I started going to one bar, walking to a bar one day, loved it, fell in love with a guy, started going there every day. And then I started working there because I had a big bill at the end of it. And that turned into basically me living part-time in Guatemala the whole time I was in college. And like just living down there. I really had no interest in being in Vermont. I was like, I'm just gonna be in Guatemala. Like, this is what I do.
You must have had a big bill there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was kind of a joke that I was a big bill. It was like over $1,000 and beers cost $1. So it was like, you know,
it's a lot of hours. Nothing. You're like, I'm going to be here a while. I got to extend this trip.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was there. And then while I wasn't there bartending and kind of living my life down there, I was studying at Bennington, and I ended up majoring in fine art and philosophy. And my philosophy professor, when I told him that I wanted to study philosophy, he was like, well, you're just going to be a bartender for the rest of your life. And I was like, ha ha ha. Uh,
Oh no.
you're right. And then
You're like, but I'm gonna be the best one. So yeah.
well, right. So then I graduated, but I graduated in 2008. I don't know how old you are, but like, but I think we may be in the same sphere. Um, and the economy had just collapsed, like especially that year, it was like no jobs, unpaid art internships. I really thought I was going to go off and be a professor somewhere. Like I really love reading. I'm a total nerd. Like, I was a triple major until they told me I couldn't write my philosophy thesis in Spanish. I'd have it be two majors. I'm like, well, so why not? So I tried to write three theses and I was like, no, I'm not going to. I love it. So I love being a nerd. And then that's when I moved to New York in 2008. I'm like, all right, I'm going to not be in Guatemala for a while. I'd broken up with my boyfriend there. I was like, let's move to New York. I have an identical twin sister. She was living here. I was like, let's go there. And I got a job at Gagosian Gallery, which is like, if you're an art nerd or buff, it's like the place, right? Like all the fancy schmancy artists that sell at Sotheby's for bazillions of dollars have shows at Gagosian. And it sucked. It was the worst job I ever had. Like it was brutal, unpaid. And it really like disenfranchised me, disenchanted me from what I loved about art.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is a currency. And I was like, this sucks. And I was working just at a crappy little cafe in the West Village. Got a call from a friend in Mexico who produced mezcal and was like, hey, there's a mezcal bar opening up in New York. And I was like, really? Like no one here's ever heard of mezcal, because the bar I worked at in Guatemala was a tequila and mezcal bar. So I spent time like traveling back and forth to Mexico. Anyway, called the place up. Long story short, they wouldn't give me a job as a bartender. They would give me a job as a cocktail waitress because I knew so much about mezcal and tequila, but I didn't know shit about cocktails. I was like, how do you make a martini? I've been bartending for 4 years, but I was like a beer and a shot bartender. Like I made the occasional mojito. And then I kind of had my mind blown. I was like, there's all these people here making these beautiful, crazy things, super creative. There's so much like, I'm a nerd, right? If you are a nerd, that just try to get into booze, because it is just endless nerdery as far as the eye can see. Like pick a lane and you can keep on going down each single one. So I was like, this is awesome. So I started geeking out. You could be really creative. And then I was like, I hate this job at this gallery. I think I'm just going to do this. So I told my parents are both artists. So I was like, I'm going to stop the gallery thing. And they're like, my mom was like, well, if you're going to be a bartender, you better be the best bartender you can be. And I was like, noted.
Heck.
Yeah. And then that was the beginning. It was, the beginning of a long ride. But it was interesting and fun. And, in the mid aughts, like the mid to late aughts, that's when the cocktail re-evolution was really happening, particularly in New York City. I was just kind of like right place, right time. And there were so many people that got into the industry that maybe wouldn't have otherwise, because the economy had collapsed. So like, I probably wouldn't have kept on bartending. I would have probably been like, yeah, I'm gonna go become a professor. But I was like, I'm not gonna go $100,000 in debt again in this economy to go to grad school. Like, no way. And I'm really glad that that's the way it worked out. Like, I love my life. I love my job. I love the different facets of my job. I always thought I'd work for someone. I learned pretty quickly that I'm not good at working for other people. I'm pretty just good at working for myself with other people. Yeah. But being an employee is not my strong suit.
Well, it's because, you have, first of all, you went for philosophy. You're also a horsewoman. So that's a whole other ballgame in itself. Like, we're highly independent people as horse people. Like, it's like,
are you a horse person too?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. On and off. Like, obviously it's an expensive thing to do, but like, I've always loved horses. I nerded out. Book series, like my favorite book series, and it's hard because I won't read any other, is The Green Rider.
Oh yeah.
So I actually interviewed two people who are working on a project for that
Oh,
musically
no
and
way.
artistically. So it's pretty
Wow,
exciting.
cool.
As you see my
Nice.
eyes light up.
Yeah, right.
But yes, I love horses. My cousin and I, we rode horses. I never got to show or anything, but point is it's like you're a highly independent person and you care much more for the animals than you typically do for people. Although you
Precisely.
appreciate the people around you, it's that. And also again, just having that philosophy, and you worked in the art gallery, so you have these ideas, you have this creativity and this outlet that wants to get out. And then when you're working for other people, and most likely you probably are a good worker, obviously, like you have that drive, and when you're devoting it to somebody else and to somebody else's ideas, it drains you. It really drains you. And for a while it's fine, that you need to, and we'll get into that with you as well, kind of where that line was drawn and when you knew that you could become your own boss
Mhm,
essentially.
mhm,
But yeah, it's you need that experience for a while. You need to apprentice under people, but make sure it's the right people, right, that are going to help you to grow and not just try to stunt your growth and keep you in the same place. And also just kind of give you that opportunity to be creative once you've learned. So I think that's
right.
a very important part. So when did that come in for you? Or maybe there wasn't a moment like that and you just cut it cold turkey.
Well, I mean, so I'm a Scorpio, so
Oh
I'm
boy.
pretty fiercely loyal. And I don't like to change things up a lot. Like once I find a thing and I like it, I pretty much stick with it.
Yeah.
Like I lived in the same apartment in New York City for 14 years. No one's done that, right? Like I'm like, okay, I like it, I have it. It wasn't that easy for me at first to get into the bartending game in New York.
It never is, first of all, in New York City.
Right, but then particularly as a woman, right? So at the time, cocktail bar, fancy cocktail was synonymous with speakeasy, was synonymous with pre-prohibition, prohibition era, was synonymous with if you were a woman bartender, you were a whore, right? So
Yeah.
all these images of what people wanted to see in their bars were like the meme of a mixologist, right? So like the dude in the hat with the mustache or the beard with the arm garters and the suspenders and the vest, and there wasn't a lot of space for a woman in that. People were like, oh, you didn't fit that image of the thing
Mhm.
that I want my bartender to be. I don't think it was like active sexism in most cases. It was just everyone wanted to be Jerry Thomas, which is this ancient cocktail godfather of cocktails.
Nice.
Um, so when I asked to be a bartender, I was just like told, no, you're a cocktail waitress. And I was like, all right. Like, so it's like, I don't think so. I'm a
Yeah.
klutz too. I'm like, I drop things constantly. I'm like, don't let me carry a tray. I should not be carrying trays. Stick me behind that bar where I'm sequestered and I can't break anything. Oh, I mean, I
Yeah.
can, but not as much.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
You'll know where everything is. There's not many variables that'll change for you unless
yeah,
you want them to.
exactly. I step 3 feet this way, 3 feet that way, and then I'm good. Um, so yeah, so I like I asked for a job at this bar I was working at Maya Wen. They're like, no, you're a cocktail waitress. I was like, okay, I want to go. And I got some other jobs. I worked at a place called Fort Defiance. That was like my first like cocktail bartending job that I got in Red Hook. Um, and my big break was when I got a gig working for Julie Reiner. So she was opening up a bar in Manhattan called Lonnie Kai. I got an interview. And she was like, yeah, I'll give you a chance. But I was green, right? And she's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll give you a chance. I'll put you on Tuesdays and Saturdays when you have like a bunch of support. And then we immediately like had a mutually beneficial relationship. We really liked each other. I mean, obviously she's like the matriarch in the cocktail scene. She was doing classic cocktails and cocktails before people thought that you had to be a speakeasy to be a bar. So she was kind of like right. She like really got in there. And then all of a sudden everyone was like, no, you gotta be a man. And it was really great working for Julie. And I worked for her at Lonnie Kai for 2 years. She took me over to Clover Club in Brooklyn. I worked at Clover Club for 4 years. And I really liked working for Julie. But at a certain point, I was like, I want to go open my own bar. And I was young. I was 28 when I decided I want to open my own bar. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'm only 27. Like, I want to do this now. Like, I want to get going. And I couldn't. Like, I kept on trying. Investors would be like, we're not going to give you money until you have a space. And then the space would be like, we're not going to give you the space until you got the money. Of
Yep.
course. Right? And I was like, okay. And I was like,
Always.
but I have all these accolades. Look, I was like Zagat 30 under 30. And this is before I did like most of the accolades. I had like a handful of smattering of like attention and press and whatever.
Well, which even like
And
you said though, at that time was still more than people not expected, but expected of women in the industry. So
totally, totally. I mean, and there was a time like in the very beginning where like there was like five of us that people like, and I hate saying this, there were many more than five of us, but
right.
I got a lot of opportunities, I think, because I was working for Julie. So a lot more people knew me because I worked for Julie. So I got a lot of opportunities because they couldn't think of any other women.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole reason why we started Speed Rack. Like, I'd be like, why don't you guys hire more women? People were like, we don't know any. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Well, here's a
Here you
stage,
go.
20 of them on there. Like, now you know some.
Love
Um,
that. That's great.
and anyway, but I was like, I'm gonna open my own place, and I couldn't. And then Julie was like, the same landlord as Clover Club was like, I have the space across the street. Do you want to open up another bar? Because they're very good tenants. And then Julie asked me, like, hey, I know you want to open your own bar and you're having problems. Do you want to open up like what would then become Leanda with me? And I was like, yes, that sounds like it's probably a good idea. And we did. And I was like, well, I have to open up my own bar. I'm gonna do it within a year after that. Leanda's been open 7 years now, and I had never opened another bar. Like,
goals alter, goals change. You
yeah,
know,
alter goals.
you've done a lot, so it's good.
Yeah,
And
but it
also
was
that hunkers you down too, you know.
exactly. So yeah, so I think that was like that was the path. And like I did some brand work for a while where I was working for other people. And the thing is like if I don't believe in it like 110%, I have no poker face. I can't really tell you that this is really great, you should buy it. Like I worked for Tequila Ocho for a while. I really do think it's the best tequila in the world. I had no problem telling people that they should buy it because it's the best. But then they brought on a mezcal, and I was like, they want me to sell this too. And I didn't hate it, but I was also like, I don't love it.
Yeah.
And then I quit. I was like, I literally can't sell this. So yeah, I think that once I made the realization that I'm much more comfortable, like I know that if I do it, I'm such a perfectionist that it's going to be to a level that I respect and I want to put out there into the world for other people to participate in. I'm not going to put something out that's like meh.
Yeah.
So for me, it's much better to be it like to be there with, sorry,
The subway in the background. Is that what that is?
oh, it's stupid. I'm gonna start over.
No worries, no worries. Go for it.
New York City people song stuff.
With what
so,
space?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I made the realization that I like really kind of need to be able to sell the thing that I really believe in, that's when I was like, okay, this is kind of the only way. Like I can't promote or sell or do something for something that I don't like really believe in for a job,
Yeah.
It's one thing like, okay, like Ivy, tell us you love this rum. And I'm like, yeah, it's good. I can say I like that rum, but like to do it all day, every day and like sell the rum and make my living off telling people that I love this rum when I'm kind of like mediocre on it, can't do it.
It's difficult, you know, and sometimes like you said, you have to do it for certain things, but when it
Mhm.
becomes a part of your daily life or enough of it, and like I was telling somebody else, even with this, I have a part-time job, they're wonderful, but I've been trying to grow my own business, opened it up technically in the pandemic, but I've been doing personal training since like 2013, teaching martial arts since 2016 or 17. And they started out in New York, and now I've moved to Hawaii. So I'm over here, and not that nobody knows me, but they don't. So now it's even harder. There was a whole point to this and I already forgot it, but just working for yourself. And when you have to work for somebody else and then you make it a part of your daily life to try and have to learn what they're teaching you, and it kind of is it's occupying space in your brain that you're like, I could be filling this with the things that I want to fill it with and the things that I want to relay and convey to people, and now I have to learn something that just feels like it's not gonna it's not where you want to go. But you know, it's just that mentality sometimes of like, making sure that you have, and this is for our listeners out there too, like making sure you have your goals always in sight. You have your reality. Like my old boss, my old still current instructor would say, like, you have two cards. One has dream written on it and one has reality written on it.
Yeah.
And one is always going to come like kind of more into view than the other. You just want to make sure that the one that starts coming towards your view and starts covering the other one is your dreams, because more often than not, that reality one starts coming forward a little bit more, and it eventually starts kind of like tunnel visioning, and you lose sight of that dream. So as long as you have the sight of that dream, try to always bring that to the forefront. Obviously there's reality right now, but you want to make that dream your reality. So you're going to have to go through those things sometimes, but like Ivy was saying too, just make sure that you go with what you believe in. Don't get lost in the sauce necessarily, like with with other people's dreams, and don't also let them tell you that you can't. Just like Ivy, just like Lynette did. We had her on here in our previous episodes too. And she also talked about Julia Reiner too, and the opportunities. And she's from Hawaii too, right?
Yeah. Well, she grew up there. I think she's originally born in New Jersey, but she grew up in.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm
familiar?
from New Jersey. I live.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to research her even more.
Yeah.
And I actually live a town over from Lanikai, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, over there. Oh my gosh, amazing.
Because I'm in Kailua in Oahu.
Yeah, great. Oh my God.
So anyway, sorry about that. So yes, so you had these other jobs that you were, not wanting to have to deal with all the time. So when did you get your moment to be able to go into business for yourself? And when was the moment that you created the papers saying like what business that you're in? And also, what business was it first? Was it Leyenda?
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. And I own multiple businesses now. And I love what you just said about that dream, about like don't let the reality block your vision of the dream. Like always like make sure that the dream is there leading you.
I'll credit Seafood Dan with that one, Dan Anderson.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I love it. But there's a thing though that happens, that when you accomplish a portion of your dream, if you just make it happen, if you do your dream, then what? And like, I think the most frustrating thing for anyone who's like an entrepreneur, anyone who's like accomplished something, is everyone's constantly asking like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And I'm like, isn't this enough? Like,
God damn it.
Yeah, I'm like, what else do you want me to do? So yeah, anyway, all that to say, my first business that I started was actually my consulting business, just Ivy Mix Incorporated, because I do a lot of side hustle work. I do consulting, I do like work for brands, I do different cocktail menus for different people, and I needed to have an entity to do that. And I kind of like that, I did that to grow me, Ivy Mix, as a company, right? That's the first one I started. And then, well, I guess technically the first one I started was Speed Rack. So Lynette and I incorporated Speed Rack because we're a full-fledged business. We grew that, and I learned a lot about what I'm bad at, which is the books. I am bad at the books. I'm not an Excel person. I'm not a QuickBooks person. Money truly actually bores me. I've always been the type of person that's like, if I'm satiated and I'm happy and I'm content and I can live, I'm okay. And it like baffles people. Maybe it's because I'm a crisis, product of the crises when everything fell apart. But like I truly don't, like, if I've got enough money to buy groceries and I don't want, I'm okay. Yeah. Like my boyfriend's like, what about your future? And I'm like, oh.
I'm living in the now. Thanks.
Yeah, living in the now. But yeah, so Speed Rack, then Ivy Mix Incorporated, and then I opened up Leyenda, and did Leyenda, and then I have a consulting company with my friend Piper. I grew up with him. He's one of my best friends. He used to work in Dave Arnold's lab, and kind of like he like invented the Searsol. And then last year, or well, we incorporated 2 years ago, but we signed our lease in the middle, like right before COVID started. But I opened up a bottle shop called Fiasco. So we sell wine, spirits, all the paraphernalia around wine and spirits. And yeah, those were kind of like, I like having lots of different things to do. Like I like having different projects. I'm a project oriented person. Like at this point, Leyenda, we just turned 7. It's a well-oiled machine. I have amazing staff that I can leave alone to watch it. I don't worry about it. It's great. And I really like to be able to dip my toe into different projects and different things frequently and regularly.
Yeah.
So yeah, long-winded answer. I'm not even sure if I did answer.
No, you did. I mean, it's your story and it's your history. And honestly, so I'm a Virgo, so I like details. Sometimes I get lost in the details, so I have to kind of pull myself back out. But what I kind of went on to is, so you and your friend Piper had opened up a bottle shop. So where was the moment? Was it after that you were co-founding? I'm just going to say Leyenda. That's it was hurting me to say Leyenda because of my Argentina.
Yeah.
I was like, Leyenda.
I also lived in Argentina for a while, so I guess you.
Oh, also, yeah, I was in Buenos Aires. So I also, met a guy there too for a while.
Yeah, it happened. It happened.
It was beautiful. I had a great time. So it was a really good experience. But yeah, so you and your friend Piper opened up a bottle shop. So when were you able to open that up, and how? I'm just going to kind of get into the funds part of it now too, because that's an important part. Like, yes, money is boring. I find numbers tend to intimidate me. And
as women, honestly, we're not taught to deal with money or be taught to be comfortable with it. It's completely effed up. Like, it's like, that's like one of my missions in life is like, we got to learn, we got to understand how to even read a P&L. Like that, like for me, I was so intimidated of asking questions that I've gotten myself into financial situations that are messed up because I was too embarrassed to ask because I'm a woman.
Yeah, and you don't want to feel stupid like in front of people too. It's like P&L. I don't even know what that means, to be honest.
Profit and loss statement, right? So yeah, so it's especially every business has one because right, you want it. Whole part of a business is more money coming in than you have going out, and that's how you kind of balance out the sheet. But yeah, financially, I mean, I will say that I'm a big proponent of having business partners. Okay. I am an identical twin. I've just spent my whole life being partnered. Always. Right. And I depend on other people to do the work. At Leyenda, there's a lot of us. There are 5 partners. So myself, Julie, her wife Susan, Christine, and Tom, and an investor. So we got an investor for Leyenda, and we were lucky we got a sole investor, which was fantastic.
How did you do that, if you don't mind me asking really quick?
It was actually a friend of mine, my best friend's husband. He had invested in bars and restaurants before. I was like, listen, here's the track record of Julie. Here's, like, you know me, you know how my career has been rising. Like they have they know how to do the money part. Like, yeah. I know how to do the song and dance face part, right? And the creative part, like that's me, that's them. And he was like, great. Like, he got the resources together. Leyenda was very cheap to open. We were lucky that it was cheap. We opened up Leyenda on $250,000. That's not a lot of money for a restaurant. So that was great. And yeah, I mean, and we gave him a hunk of we did it. So he got 15% of the business for those funds. The other 85% was divvied up between the rest of us. I was sweat equity, which I don't recommend to anyone opening up a business. Sweat equity basically is where you work to get your equity, right? And you are not getting paid. You are waiting until your investors all get their money back before you ever can start seeing dividends from your company. In bars and restaurants, that could be never.
Yeah.
Right? They could just be never. And I think it's really beneficial to have a piece of the pie. Like, even if it's just like $5,000, like you might get like 1%, 0.5%, whatever it is. Putting in that money, I think, gives you a seat at the table, and allows you in on conversations that you may not otherwise not be able to be privy to as a financial investor. That's a regret I have. And going forward, all the businesses I've become part of, I'm financially invested. Like I'll find a way to put in money.
I mean, that's a hard lesson. That's, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah, it's a
that
hard
is a
lesson.
hard lesson. And it's, you know what, like we were saying though, it's, I had somebody else on the podcast as well, and she was discussing how, again, it was kind of project oriented, right? And they were just excited to be able to get the approval to do the project and also be able to just do it and get it out there. So their value and their time wasn't factored in initially. So, and that was a, go ahead.
Yeah, very infrequently is.
Especially as women, that's what we were talking about too, because we will just put others in our project first, like, oh, we're just lucky that we can. Meanwhile, and not everyone, you know, this isn't like to bash any dudes out there and, you know, any other gender, you know, it's just it's to showcase women. It's to understand, like, whether you again, woman, whatever gender that you are, like, you're an entrepreneur, these are important things to learn, because you might not be valuing yourself right off the bat because you don't think that you're experienced enough or anything. But if you put that value on yourself, other people will see that too. Don't get cocky about it, be smart about it. But it's, you know, these are the little things that we want to learn. And that's why I want to do this podcast, because those details, the devil's in the details, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
it's hard, but when you hear somebody else have that experience, I think it's going to resonate with people like, I heard this and I want to make sure that I don't deal with that. So it's important. So sweat equity in bars and restaurants, especially not advised.
Do it, but have some, be like, okay, I'm going to be 10% sweat equity, but I want to put $5,000 in, or whatever it is, and try to get something. So it shows A, that you're committed, and then B, it gives you a different seat at the table that you maybe have otherwise not had. Also, like, while I am extremely pro partners in businesses, it can be very complicated. Getting in a partnership with someone is basically marrying them without any of the fun stuff. And it's like, you should have a business prenup.
Yeah.
And like, people are like, oh, I get asked business stuff all the time. I'm like, get a lawyer, pay the money, have a lawyer do the contract. You don't want to do this with your business partners. It's awkward. It's like, just have the lawyer do it. Have the lawyer be the bad guy. The lawyers can argue, and then have that be that. Because if you don't have a lawyer and you don't sign the contracts, it gets complicated. And I say this as someone who still doesn't do contracts. You know, like, I should do them all the time. I don't. Like, me and my business partners at the liquor store are still, like, we've been open for a year. We signed our lease 2.5 years ago, and we still are just finalizing our contract. Like, shit happens, and I get that. But it is really important to have clear roles and responsibilities, and have a contract that basically helps you out. But I also say, like, as far as business partners are concerned, like, you know, you can rely on them, but you can also be annoyed by them. And it's really important to, like, have, like, a trustful relationship. I'm really lucky that for the longest time, most of my business partnerships were with women. I just recently started venturing out into the other side of the sexual stratosphere, of people who I get into business with. And it's interesting. It's great, but it is nice to, as a woman, to work with women. There's a little bit less intimidation, like trying to go over P&Ls and money stuff with, like, a guy that you maybe don't know that well, but you're getting into business with them because the guy has the money, can be really intimidating. So just whoever's trying to open up a business, just know what you're worth, realize you might have to take a knee every now and again, trying to build yourself up. Like, I did a bunch of shit for free. I did a bunch of stuff way undervaluing myself. I remember this guy told me once, he was like, you're not going to get it if you don't ask for it. You're not going to get what you're worth unless you ask. People love not paying. People love a low price. We love it when they're cheap and for free. So we have to keep in mind, like, understanding our value.
And people will bully you a little bit too, to try and get that sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's funny, just to, like, kind of hark on that. So I grew up playing sports. My first sport, don't worry, this will come all to a relative. It'll be relative to the conversation. So I grew up, the first sport I ever played was t-ball, and I was the only girl on the team.
Loved it. I love t-ball.
Yeah, and then I later played roller hockey, and I was again the only girl on the team, and it was awesome. Like I played other sports too, basketball and a lot of stuff. Even soccer when I was younger. It was young enough where we were all co-ed, so
Mhm.
I'm more used to playing with the boys. I grew up. My older brother, he's 5.5 years older, and I was more used to that, and I found more trouble. I had a select few like good like girlfriends, but I never really meshed with a lot of girls, especially like in school and stuff. Like
Mm.
everybody's just trying to find their way. And, I just didn't fit into one group or the other. Like I was a nerd. I was weird. Like I loved horses, loved martial arts, like I love
Mhm.
sports. Like, and I was okay with just being myself. Not that anybody else wasn't, but ourselves at that time didn't mesh. I did a lot
Mhm.
better in college where I could just, find my own niche. But so it's interesting because when I work with women sometimes, you'll still get those high school vibes sometimes and that feeling. So it's nice when you find a good support system, a good partnership, and you guys mesh really well. And you'll be able to tell that more or less right away. Sometimes not. Sometimes it changes down the road and it's really hard to kind of like it's a
Yeah.
little hard to bring back because it's such strong personalities. But again, that's why I love this podcast because it's gonna weed out who's gonna listen and who's gonna be a part of this community because you have to be some type of warrior to own your own business, to essentially run with the wolves and be a wolf yourself, right? Just
Mhm.
a cheesy analogy, but it's true. And it's just being able to work with others because to be a leader you have to know how to follow sometimes too. But
Oh, absolutely.
and it's just again, not having those preconceived notions like me, like, oh well, girls are more vicious and guys can be brutish, but I work a little bit better with them. But you know
Right.
what, when you find really strong, really good relationships with people and other women like yourself, it creates an even stronger bond because you're like, oh my god, I see me and you, and you
Mhm.
know we can work together. So
Yeah, it's really
um
important to just find, like, regardless of the gender or age. Like 'cause I was very young when I got to my businesses with people who were all older than me. So there was like this kind of always the employee, never the partner
right.
type of thing. Because I partnered with people I'd worked for 6 years. Um, so it's an interesting thing to try to like figure out like, okay, how are we with each other? How's our relationship with each other? How do we respect one another? How do we work with one another? But like everyone's like, how do you do so much? Like I do so much because I've got business partners.
Right. So you're only
Like
doing like not half the work, but it's like you're able to kind of, instead of putting all in one
sometimes,
basket, spread it
yeah,
out.
sometimes 5%, sometimes 90%, but
Yeah.
that's the beauty of having a partner, right? So you're like, or partners. I would rather have many people make little work is my mentality. So
Say that
that's
again.
many people make little work.
I like that.
And I think that it's like I like being busy, I like working, but without partnerships, I cannot, I would not be able to do what I do or have the freedom. Like what it's 1:50 in the afternoon and I'm able to sit here and do a podcast with you. Like that's a freedom,
Yeah,
you know, and a
absolutely.
privilege.
Yeah, it is. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's right.
Know who you're talking to. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, and like I said, I'm very grateful for that. And I think our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of your story and just how you're able to achieve a lot of this. So just kind of going back to all your everything that you do, which I like that you're saying many people make little work, but it's also, of course, you're rivaling with that, like, okay, but too many cooks in the kitchen. So it's knowing where to allocate people
Yes.
and where they're best suited to where there's not like too many like horn locking.
Yeah.
Um, but what I
I have
liked,
to
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say what I like about what you're saying there too. It's like so I didn't know I mentioned before, I'm a Virgo, whatever, but my focus and my attention is not scattered, but I like to do many different things.
Mhm.
So, I kind of will get lost in that. And sometimes it can get overwhelming because you want to be good at everything. But like you
Mhm.
said, if you have that good partnership and you've established those things, then, you know, if you've created a well-oiled machine in business, it's going to run by itself when you're not there. Yes, show up to make sure things are running well, but also make sure that, you've created a system to where you don't even have to be there. One of our other guests on here had mentioned that too. And I was like, that's smart. If you can just leave and not have to worry about that, then
That's the best. When I first opened Playenda, people would be like, "Are you working tonight?" I'd be like, "No." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, I'll come another time." And I'm like, you could, it's a great bar. Now when I go to Leyenda, like I don't pull that many night shifts anymore. I manage like maybe 5 or 6 times a month, usually just to help out my management team. If they need a night off, I'll go and I'll manage. But when I'm there, like past 7 o'clock at night, because normal times I'm like, I come in at 3, I do some office work, and then I'm there for like happy hour. I show my face, make sure things are running the way I want, and then I go home. And now people see me like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you here. I didn't expect to see you. And I'm like, to me, that's like the most glorious moment. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, like I don't want, because the thing about being an entrepreneur is like, are you ready to never really have a day off ever? Because especially in bars and restaurants, like when everyone else is having fun and it's a weekend.
Sorry, continue on. So just experiencing little technical difficulties, which I will edit accordingly later.
Where was
So
I?
I
Yeah.
know. Oh my God, I hope it doesn't cut you off again. um,
Oh, right. So as an entrepreneur, the thing you have to be prepared for is that you never get a day off, right? You can have days off, but like you don't have the opportunity to be like, I'm going on vacation. I'm not looking at my cell phone. I'm not going to sign into my email. Like when you're an entrepreneur and you own the business, you're responsible for, and you have to check in, and be like, okay, how you can relax, but you have to be comfortable with the fact that you completely disconnecting is unlikely. And
yeah.
it's easier if you've got lots of business partners when you say, hey, like for example, at Leyenda, like, hey, if the toilet gets clogged again, don't call me, like call someone else this time, because I'm gonna be away.
I'm
But
not
you're
the
still gonna
guy.
check
Yeah.
you're still gonna check like your emails and like how were sales last night, and that's something that you have to like know. You have to think about your future as well and be like, I don't have a 401k because I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
It depends what kind of entrepreneurship you're doing. Like obviously, if you start like some kind of mega company, you can get a 401k. If we turned Leyenda into a franchise, I could get a 401k. But I have to think about my future and like the American dream of retiring, which I personally have no interest in. My mom's 76 and still works her ass off.
Yeah.
I don't want to retire, but I do want a future, right? So it's a matter of you have to be a little bit more attentive and pay more attention than like someone who works in tech who just makes a bunch of money and they have a 401k and they're just kind of churning through life. It takes a little bit more gusto.
um, yeah, and I think that's something that also should change at some stage is more investment in smaller businesses. But also you have to know, and we have to, as again, another cheesy line, but we do have to be the change.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's why I'm doing this podcast, is to hopefully inspire people to become their own entrepreneurs if that's what they want to do. Not everyone is going to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. Like, we need people to work for us and with us as well. We've worked for people. It's within that part of life. And again, it's not for everybody. Some people just want to show up to work, do their thing, and go home. And that's great. Come work
It's
for me,
yeah, no,
um,
it's fantastic. And I think that like I see people who want to be entrepreneurs and they're not, and I can tell that they are not,
yeah,
and it's a hard thing, but I'm like, hey, listen, you could just go and like work for someone and be so good at it. Like we all have our strengths. I'm bad at working for people, straight up
yeah,
bad at it. It's one of the reasons why I don't like. That's the reason I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm like, I don't like someone telling me what to do. Some people thrive in that, like, or they need it. They need
yeah,
direction, and like, it's just about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. And I think that that's the both the positive and the negative. Me realizing that I wasn't good at working for people was not a pleasurable experience. It
yeah.
sucked. I was like, oh, I'm bad at this.
I get caught in both worlds because I do follow rules really well. And I like when I know what they are, because then I have a clear direction. But I
Mhm.
also like being creative and coming up with those ideas. Like even in high school, like, yeah, I wanted it to be my idea that we did if we were writing like a play or something in drama class. Like
Mhm.
I always have these ideas and I want to convey them, but sometimes again, you just need to, yes, believe in yourself, but ask for help, find out how you can do that better. That's where I get stuck, is because I know I want to do it and I know I have that drive, and I'm a very determined individual and
Mhm.
competitive. So, but again, it's just learning how to use that and how to do it, period. So again, working for somebody else can also do that. But like you said, sometimes you'll see people that want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't necessarily want to put in the effort, or they don't have it right away. But sometimes that's also just, you need to research the right things. You need to
Yeah.
have the right, not the right habits, but things can be learned as well. But
Yeah, you don't know if you can. You don't know if you don't try.
right. But if you do try and you decide that it's not something that you want to do, don't think of it as a failure. Just more, I mean, maybe it was a failed venture, but it just didn't work out how you wanted it to. And there's other things that you can do. And if you want to revisit it, you can. But again, it might just lead you into another direction. So I know we're running a little low on time here, but I kind of want to just get into a little bit more of prioritizing.
Mhm.
So obviously, like you said, you have help with your business partners, and you also have a lot of different businesses that you own. How do you prioritize which one to focus on, how much time to spend on those, where you give your physical presence? How do you prioritize that, and on a daily basis? Because like you said, you never really get a day off, but again, you are doing what you love. We're
Mhm.
nerds, right? We love it.
Right.
So even when we're researching, but how do you not get overwhelmed, and how do you not lose that love for what you do?
Yeah, my whole mentality has always been work hard to play hard. I like to, I love to work. I'm lucky that frequently my work is play, which is fun, but I also like to just go have fun and do my own thing. So scheduling, time allotting is very important. Um, I went through some personal life changes at the like last year. And that kind of like put a wrench into like my normal the way I live my life. I had to like take a step back and be like, okay, how do I want to do this? And one of the things I realized is that I used to fly like 150,000 miles a year. Like I was always on the road on top of owning my businesses, right? And I realized that I don't necessarily want to do that as much anymore. So I'm kind of like, if someone wants me to go do a job for them, I'll do it, but it's gonna have to pay me. Like I used to like, you want me to go where? I'll do it just for the trip. Like I'll do this, da, da, da. Okay, no. And then for my day to day, like I like to have a schedule. Like when I'm in Brooklyn, I like to. I know that you're a very physically active person. I also uh, dedicate a lot of my time and money to maintaining my body. When after you've bartended, training horses from pre-puberty, puberty, and into early adulthood was not good for my body. Bartending for let's see, nearly 16 years was not good for my body. Like it's just there's a lot of like wrecking the body. So I like to get exercise. I got to make sure that's a thing. I intermittently go through phases of meditation. I wish I did it daily. I do not.
Yeah,
But
that one's a hard one for me too.
yeah, I wish I did, but I don't. Um, but I have like by making sure that I do at least that once a day. I mean, I might miss one, but probably once a day I'll get some exercise. Um, I do like my admin work from home. I have a home, like I work in my home, where I do like computer stuff in the day. I go and check out my liquor store. Fiasco is just 3 blocks away from where I live, so I was like trot right over there, make
Nice.
sure that's okay. My business partner Connor runs it. Me, Connor, and Piper own it. Make sure everything's okay there. Then I go to Leyenda, make sure everything's okay there. I go back to Fiasco, make sure everything's okay there, and then I come home. I try to be home early, and I try to just make sure that people are running it well. To me, the sign of success is if you have other people who can help your businesses run, that you are now managing the managers. And I think that's what I do. I pop in and I'm like, how's it going? What do I got? What do I need to know? What needs to change? Why we walk through it. And then I see how it goes. And that's how I try to manage my time. There's different things like I helped consult on, and I'm a partial owner of a CBD canned cocktail called Flyers. Like that will take up a lot of my time sometimes, but then other times it won't at all. And it's just a matter of I just make sure that I have an end point. Like I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
answer emails past 7 o'clock at night. Sometimes I have to, but usually I'm like, nope. Like I might be at the bar, I might be working, I might be doing some sort of work, but I'm not doing anything admin that late because it's like you can just get into this. You need to set barriers for yourself because if you don't, you're kind of like just at the mercy of your work, and there's glory in that for about 3 years before you really start to burn out. you
Yeah.
know so I think it's really important to set boundaries, and I think setting a schedule is important. Like, some days I'm like, okay, I gotta go to Leyenda, and like my sister, she lives here part-time. She's like, why? And I'll be like, well, I gotta go check in. She's like, well, it doesn't really matter. Just stick around here and hang out with me. And I'm like, no, I gotta go and I gotta check because this is my
It's not how
schedule. This
this
is what I
works.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like half the time I come in and people are like, eh, what are you doing here? It's fine. It's no big deal. I'm like, well, good. I'm just gonna be here for a bit of service and I'll leave. So yeah.
Yeah, it's also nice too because it's like you know damn well that when you go into a place like that and you're part owner, there is a level of like everybody's assholes tighten a little bit further,
A little bit
which
like, yeah.
which you need, like you need. And again, if somebody who works for you also knows their value and knows what they're doing, they're going to be comfortable around you anyway. Like they're
Mhm.
doing things the right way. It's like we know the business, like we know what's going on when we're not there sometimes, but you also want to make sure that you curve that. Like, so your presence showing up is just a little reminder of like, I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's running
Exactly.
by itself. I know you guys know your things. Like I trust you to do this. Like you said, you want to have a team that you trust. But
It's
at the same
fun.
time, it's just a good check-in to kind of like a little gut check as a reminder, like let's keep running this the way that we need
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah. And one thing I want to kind of like, I know we have not that much time, but like the thing I also want to say about entrepreneurship is that in entrepreneurship, you're bound to be around other entrepreneurs. And there are gonna be a lot of like time shaming. Like,
oh yeah.
oh, like I went out to dinner the other night at a restaurant and I knew the owner and I was like, hey, how you doing? And they are like killing it. They're just like taking over Brooklyn. They're just like really, really, really killing it. Well, he's just like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm good. And he's like, oh, well, like, wait, you're not working? I'm like, no, man, I don't work Fridays. Like, I'm like, I honestly don't work that many nights. I work happy hour, I get out. He's like, oh, wow, wow, wow. I'm like, I didn't work. And I was just like, yeah, well, to me, this is success. Like,
Yeah, it is. Like,
I'm
come on.
succeeding because I can go out to a nice dinner and like overindulge in ridiculous wine if I want to.
Work
And I think
smarter,
that
not harder on certain things.
right, and I think that there can be like, oh well, like why not keep going? Like what? Like people who are entrepreneurs are inherently competitive, and it could
Hmm.
there can be like some shaming going on if you're not
Yeah.
like doing enough, if you're not doing it again, if you're not like. So it's like, okay, like there is a time that you can just kind of like sit, and if you don't have time to sit, I question the happiness of life.
And I think sometimes that's a lack of understanding. I don't know if I want to say understanding, but it's also a lack of I don't know where to go with that. Like not experience, but it's kind of like you know how to prioritize your life to where you're actually enjoying it. And hey, some people like just having that rush all the time
I've
until
been
they get
there.
sick. And then,
Yeah.
again, it's working smarter, not harder in certain ways so that you can work harder at something else that you're trying to do. It's always kind of reallocating what you need to focus on. It's again just talking about that priority so that you can have that time off. Like this is your life. Why would you not want to have that time off to do something else that you love doing? So
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
This will stop. This will stop.
Hell yeah, warrior women in the world
I'm
of
not sure if
entrepreneurship.
anyone else has this where they live, but hyped up motorcycles are like all the rage in Brooklyn. And they're super loud, and this will stop and momentarily, but they zip down streets and then they set off all the car alarms and it will go for about 10 more seconds. Yeah. I
Oh
know.
my god. That's
But it's like
definitely
these
staying on the
annoying,
original.
really loud cars, and they like go in hordes down the streets. They like do like wheelies. It's fucking insane. And no one will give them a ticket because apparently it's making gang violence go down. So people who would otherwise be doing gang stuff are now on these bikes, and they're spending times on the bikes, not doing gang stuff.
Like
Gang stuff.
patrolling almost, even though they're not. I remember they would go down Broadway. Broadway. I don't know if anybody, like the listeners here, if you've not been to New York City, if you're going down, like, it's like the song on Broadway.
Yeah,
Like, seriously,
exactly.
though, like, it's a lot of traffic on that one street. It runs like the whole of like Manhattan, the island. And these guys will literally come from like Washington Heights up north and all the way down. Like, I used to live in Washington Heights too, and they'll come down. And I worked at like Canal and Broadway. That's where Anderson's martial arts was and is. But yeah, you would just hear them go like, so
It's
anyway.
not. Anyway, I can't remember what I was
That's
saying.
I know that's the New York life though.
Yeah.
So just oh my gosh, so many things. Not at all. Sorry, losing my mind. I'm like, there's so many things I want to talk about and ask you. But you know what? I guess just to, there's one more important thing. If there's any resources that you can offer that you either worked with, or I know you talked about, your advice for investing in different things. Is there any place or any books other than your spirit book as well that can help our entrepreneurs with building their business, or if again they're well established already, like what's something that they can look out for if you have that?
There are different things. Let me see if I can remember. There is a book, dang it. Is this what it is? There is a book. No, damn it. I'll have to look it up. I can see the image of it. I had it in my room. There's lots of books out there for women and investing that I think is really good. There's a book called there's a platform called Elevest that I think is a very interesting resource. There's yeah, I think what I think is very important. I don't really have that many books on it, but I do think that listening to things like this are important, and like understanding how the ladder, like there's so many different ways of investing, so many ways of doing money stuff, but there's just like, how do you work your way up a ladder? Like, do you want to work your way up some sort of corporate structure and then become an entrepreneur? Do you want to just like go from here and then go for it? Like, how there's no right answer. I think listening to stories about people who have done it, while very inspiring, can also be a little bit like, no, I can't, I'm nothing like that,
Right, exactly. Yeah, like
um
it's always the other people can, but it's not,
but it's not, exactly. And like, I always love like helping people and talking to people. I'm now at a stage like that I like can invest in things, like not like a lot, but I can invest some,
Yeah.
and I think that that's exciting. And just trying to like get a network of people and women, I think it does really help to have a fellow network of women to lean on and rely on, because we are not taught, or we're not, like, culturally, women are not given the tools to climb that system, and
Yeah.
beat that system. So I think it is important to like have a group of people. I mean, women, maybe not women, people who you feel comfortable with, like maybe if you're, non-conforming or whatever, like whoever it is, find a group of people that you feel are you to try to relate to, because it can really help. It can be a safe place, which is good.
Yeah, you're creating that team and having that understanding that if it's a lot of people that are working together that are similar, again,
Mhm.
sometimes you guys can like butt heads, I'm sure, but also there's a really amazing team that can come of that. I still
Mhm.
play a sport, just again going off, called camogie. It's an ancient Irish sport, or hurling. And this group of women, like, sometimes off the field we might not have like similar interests, but on
Mhm.
that field it's always go time. It's,
Right.
it's we all want the same thing on that field. We all want to make sure that we work well together, don't berate each other. Of course you get one and a few that are gonna like kind of have their moments, and then it's like we got to curb that. But
Mhm.
again, having that energy of people that are all working towards that same goal and working together really well is an amazing feeling. And it's like Amazon's, like I think of like, like the island of Themyscira and like,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
like Amazonian like women, because it's, you feel that strength rise too when you work on it though. Like, you know, there's a lot of times that people wouldn't be able to show up for practice, and that hinders you because you're not working together. You're not practicing to work together.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have those moments of like awkwardness because you don't
Mm-hmm.
know where one's energy is going. But the more that you work with each other and you kind of reevaluate and keep going towards the same goals, the more you're going to be able to, I don't want to say conform, but kind of like be able to uniformly go in that direction. But each of you
Right.
is going to have your own spark. Each of you is going to have your own strengths that you're going to add to this and be able to just like, it's going to look and be like a harmonious play on the field. And the same thing I
Totally.
think in business, when you're working together, even if it's, you're not in the, they're not a part of your business, but you guys can work together to collaborate. Like you do a lot
Mm-hmm.
of collaborating, which is incredible. So if there's just one thing, which we kind of talked about already, but if there's one thing that you want our listeners to take away from this today, what would you want that to be?
Um, I think that the one thing I want people to take away is that entrepreneurship is it's a gradient. It's not a black and white experience. It is many, many, many failings, and it's one step forward, six steps back, all the way up to success, whatever that looks like. And then once you get to success, there's going to be another thing, right? And it's going to be the same process again. You're going to do this like slipping and sliding and all the way back up. And it does feel like an epic stream of fail. And then all of a sudden you get that little like bite of success. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's the addiction, right? And
Yeah.
that's what keeps you going. You know,
Such a
that
toxic relationship, but hopefully
yeah,
make it
but
not so toxic.
yeah, but like that's the thing is like there's a lot of bad, there's a lot
Yeah.
of hard, and it's just a reminder that like it's gotta keep going. And it's about you, even though like, you know, hey, I love partnerships. It is about you. It's about you and your life and living a life you want to lead. That's the most important thing. There's no point in being an entrepreneur if you fucking hate it,
Yeah.
right? So
Agreed.
just keep on keeping on. And then I think the last thing I will say is that once you succeed, it's okay, because there it's almost like I think like the empty nester thing. Like you succeed, and they're like, well, now what? You
Yeah.
know, and it's okay to just to sit and see what happens and enjoy some peace. I'm particularly not good at it. I am constantly starting new projects, but like
Yeah.
that's part of the sliding back. That's part of the 6 feet back, one step forward. And it's just a matter of keep trucking along.
Even in even in the bad parts, like, because that's the part where you want to give up and where you feel like you're failing. But if you keep going in the right direction, though, there's times where you can feel stuck. And if you feel stuck, that's when you have to do more research. That's when you have to make that effort to change something, because
Mhm.
you can't just sit there and not do anything. Like either way, you want to be moving. Like even though sometimes the steps might be backward, keep trying
Mhm.
to push forward. You're gonna get that resistance. It's just like
Mhm.
lifting. It's just like training. You know, you're of course you're gonna get that resistance. You're gonna fatigue, but if you
Mhm.
give your body that rest, take a look,
Mhm.
reset, go back into it, you're gonna be able to build a little bit stronger each time. But again, if you overexert yourself, you're gonna cause injury, or you're gonna be able to, you know, not you're going to just break down your body rather than building it back stronger. It needs that time to rest, to rebuild those muscles. And last nerdy thing that I'll add to
A
that
great
is,
analogy. Very
thank you.
good.
My life. Well, it's another thing too, like again, just nerding out on that is, and with my own experience, people see getting a black belt, because I have my black belt in Jeet Kune Do under Sifu Dan Anderson. They see that as kind of like the end all be all, like, I want to get my black belt. But then they also, a lot of people often fall off.
Mhm.
But they often say too, where at least where I come from, that's where it begins. You know,
Mhm.
you work to get that mastery level so that you can really start understanding and building off of that. It's
Mhm.
not to give you that feeling of just like, oh God, I'm never going to do it then. It's because each part of the journey is going to add something to it. It's
Mhm.
not just like all of these things are nothing while you get to that level. No,
Mhm.
it's like you need to pay attention to what you're learning on the way so that it will build you to that mastery level.
Mhm.
And It's pretty fucking awesome. I will say,
Yeah.
like, and to realize that once you get there, you're like, oh shit, I have all of these skills and all of this knowledge and
Hmm.
this community. And now I can build off that even more, but I can kind of I can relax a little because I have that confidence and knowledge of understanding within myself.
Hmm.
And now I can just have some fun with it and be able to share that with others and show others that, listen, you can do this too. You just gotta not be so intense sometimes. Well, no, be intense,
Totally.
be determined, but remember to enjoy it too. I'm very hard on myself, so people have to also remind me of that. But yeah, so it was just kind of going into that, like you said, keep on keeping on, because it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop once you reach that success either. You just kind of go into the other little more
Hmm.
detailed avenue or build off of that. So
Hmm.
Miss Ivy Mix, where can we find you? Where can we find your books? Where's your social? Like, how do you want people to reach you, find you? Find her at Leyenda, like
Yeah. Yeah, you can find me. I'm just at Ivy Mix on Instagram. I I've never really used Twitter, but now since the whole Elon Musk thing, I'm like extra not using it. Um,
Right.
and Yeah, you can find information on me and what I'm doing at my website, ivymix.com. You can find me at Leyenda, usually for happy hour. Because I tried to leave after that because I've gotten to that point in my career and there's no shame in it. I'm proud of it. And you can find me at Fiasco, my bottle shop. And you can find me frequently just bouncing around to different sorts of events and doing different things. You can find me at speed rack events when I'm doing those. And hopefully you can find me just kicking back and relaxing quite a bit of the time, because that's the sign of success, I think.
It's like trying to catch the lightning in a bottle, though. It's like, where's she gonna be next?
I know, I know. It's like where in the world is Ivy Mix? It is a thing. I'm
Oh my
getting
god.
better at. I am getting better at it. But oh, and if you want to get my book, you can either order it through me, or you can get it on Amazon. Or the best thing to do is to go to your favorite independently owned bookstore and ask for them to buy it, because hopefully they'll pick up more than one copy, and that would be good for me and great for the bookstore.
Yeah, small businesses, just supporting other small businesses. But Miss Ivy Mix, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate your time greatly. And I know that this podcast, and I hope that it really is able to help other entrepreneurs throughout the world, and also especially women, to understand different things that maybe they haven't seen or heard before. So, just creating a strong community here, and I'm happy to have you a part of it. So thank you so much for all your time today and all of your help. So
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
of course, have a great day. Aloha.
You too.